Hello. Good afternoon. My name is Nitin Thakrar. I'm from Elearning Studios. And today we have John O'Hare from Nokia.
Hello. Can you, actually, funnily enough, if you look in the brochure, I'm down as head of motivation. So I hate to disappoint you if you've expected the lunchtime session to be kind of a quiet and you want to be woken up. I'm actually a geeky head of pure research at Nokia. So I'm here to support Nitin and explaining why we support VR and believe it's the future of education.
Thank you. So today we're just going to introduce in e-learning studios what is virtual reality, how it can be applied for learning, how we've worked with Nokia, and some conclusions after that. So before we start, I guess everyone's heard of virtual reality now, but anyone thinking of doing or trying out virtual reality as in their organizations, or how many hands up can we have? Okay. So 20–30% of people are looking at doing it in some form or shape. Hopefully we can give you some ideas, inspirations of how you can use virtual reality, but these are some examples of what we've done with Nokia in using virtual reality, and then we can create bespoke content, and we can deploy it in multiple ways, which I'll explain. So e-learning studios have been going for over 10 years, working with different kinds of technologies, and we've read different kinds of technologies through the years, through mobile learning and online learning, and we use instructional design, so we train our developers in instructional design as well, so learning is a key requirement in our organization, and we're all passionate about our learning and using different kinds of technology for learning. So so we have learning on one side. We do use different kinds of learning development, sales, training, virtual tours, product learning, health and safety, and we convert all that into different kinds of technology. And one of the key technologies we're working on is using of virtual reality. These are some of our customers. Some have used virtual reality in their organizations through us as well. So, what is virtual reality? It's a 360 computer-based generated simulation to give you an experience of an environment. It runs off a phone or a computer, and it has varying degrees of interactivity as well. So we create different kinds of environments and situations and scenarios for you to interact with that kind of scenario. There's different kinds of headsets. I'm sure you've all heard of Oculus Rift that's out there, as well as the Google Cardboard, who came out in competition against it, and also Samsung Gear VR. So we've got the Samsung Gear VR and the Oculus and the Google Cardboard at our stand on U2. And they all come in different prices and ranges, but the most deployable headset is probably the Google Cardboard, which comes out around about £10, and you can put any kind of phone inside there as well. So how can it be applied to learning? I'm just going to give you a short video to show you how we've applied it with Nokia in learning. So.
Diagnostics says there's a loose connection at the top of the tower. If you go get your gear ready, I'll go call it in to make sure that we're all clear.
So just to go back to the old philosophers in the 15th century, if you tell me, I will listen. If you show me, I will see. But if you let me experience, I will learn. So we take that idea, and we also want to sort of quote some recent insights as well. So one is, whilst we acknowledge that a simulation is only a representation of real life, there are features that we can enhance real life training. So we can create different kind of scenarios and situations which you have never thought of in that before, and we can really enhance learning in that way. For example, a simulation can provide authentic and relevant scenarios, make use of pressure situations that tap users' emotions and force them to act. They provide a sense of unrestricted options, and they can be replayed. So emotion is quite key. So if you can create emotions in a person, that's going to really generate good memory. And also visual impact is quite important as well. So that engages the brain much more strongly if there's some sort of visual impression made on the brain. So we thought about how can it apply to the 70-20 rule. Everyone who's heard of the 70-20, and I think it sits on the experience side. So how you can get the most experience where possible. So it allows you to do freedom to fail, so you can fail as many times as possible. It breeds creativity, so you can think of different ways you can deal with that situation or the environment. And also, instead of just passing a course or doing the course completions, what we look at is behavior change, and what is that person doing in that behavior? What are the decisions that they are making? What's the consequence of those decisions as well? So they're all quite important factors when it comes to learning. And it also encourages repetition. We often find that people will do a virtual reality 10, 20, 30 times more than often they would do an e-learning course, just doing point and click. So it really you get much more use out of a virtual reality than you would out of a online training. So as I mentioned earlier on, getting your emotions desensitized is important. So if you're in a sort of panic situation where you're going to look at a scenario situation, when your emotions are heightened, you're going to make some wrong decisions as well. So if you can desensitize your emotions, you're going to deal with a situation much more rationally and calmly, and you can be able to be more effective in that situation. So when to use VR? So when there's a sense of presence, so when you need to be in that environment, in that situation is quite important. So it could be dealing with customers and how you react with customers. And one of the things we're looking at is doing multiplayer. So you have the customer and you have the supplier, and how the customer and supplier react in a different in that buying situation, negotiation. All those kinds of things can be brought out. Dangerous environments probably obvious, but how we create dangerous environments and you can't often create those kinds of things. For example, a fire in an office, and when dealing with expensive equipment and materials can be quite expensive when trying to train people. Distance learning as well. So these VR headsets can be done online, off-site as well. So you don't have to be in a central headquarters anywhere. As we also find it used for induction purposes as well. So when you're onboarding new recruits as well, it's important to get them to understand the culture of the organization. What is that culture, and how do you manifest that culture visually as well? So that is the kind of things it can be important as well. Sites, if you have multiple sites and tours and showing different kinds of products, it would take quite a few months for people to see those kinds of things. But if they can visualize that in one sitting, it's going to be much more powerful. So I'm going to introduce you to Jono, who's going to talk about how we worked with Nokia.
Hi. So most people know about Nokia because of the handsets. Now, Nokia's over 150 years old, and it started off as a paper mill in the Finnish forests. It then evolved into working in rubber, and then electronics and technology, and then mobile phones. But all behind that, we were always working with the network equipment. But throughout Nokia's history, it's always been reinventing itself based on learning and performance. So my role in Nokia is head of pure research into education. So I'm looking at shaping the future of education 5 or 6 years into the future. And about 2 years ago, we started coming across VR. They were looking at the moves in the industry. Facebook bought Oculus Rift. We thought this is going to become a mainstream technology. So we thought we'd get in ahead of the game and start looking at some use cases, and then we approached e-learning studios to help develop those. Now, the reason we see VR as being essential for learning is because it is so real. If you think about compliance training, and pretty much every company has compliance training, you can't really test that by giving a multiple choice question, because it's the grey areas which actually test people's mettle. And one of the storyboards we approached the learning studios with was if you were at an immigration desk at an airport, and you could look around and there'd be queues everywhere, people with suitcases, your phone rings, and you say, I've got a business meeting in 20 minutes, and you're 2 people away, then you walk up to the desk and the border clerk says, sorry, you haven't filled in this visa properly. You're going to have to go to the back of the queue, or I'll give me $10 and I'll let you through. Then you could look around, see the huge queues, think I've only got 10 minutes, and most people would be tempted. And that's where you do the pure compliance training. You test people in real situations. You put people in a bar, people having drinks, everyone's having fun, and somebody says, could you give an internship to my daughter? That's when people sort of agree and break company policies. So that's when we started looking at VR, is how can we test those situations? So we came across 3 different demos. Again, we hit the compliance type training, because we thought that hits every single employee and also has that commercial potential. We train all Nokia staff. There's about 100,000 Nokia staff around the world. But all our main customers, which are like Vodafone, British Telecom, all those main tier 1 phone operators buy training services from Nokia. So compliance training kind of touches everybody. So we asked the learning studios to come up with 3 demos. And the public speaking was one that you saw a video on. We gave the basic storyboard. We sort of said Nokia is an engineering company. A lot of our engineers aren't great speakers. So we wanted an e-learning package to train them, or a VR package to train them, so they could practice, rehearse, and get very, very good. The whole future of learning is performance support. So what better way to actually get people to learn than perform? So we gave the situation to Nitin. Nitin then refined it and added extra bits of gamification. So during the simulation, it does audio sensing. So it tests the tone of your voice. It tests your head tracking. So if you're not making eye contact with the audience, if you're not talking in a varied pitch or like a multi-voice thing, or if you're talking too quiet, then it gets scored on that, and the audience reacts live. So they start to get restless, they start to make phone calls, and that can throw you off. But then you can regain control of the situation by kind of pausing, looking around. So it's a very, very powerful simulation. So I'll hand back to Nitin.
Thank you. Yeah, I think some of the examples we're going to show is just how you can make learning real and not through a computer or through a classroom. So here's some 3 examples that we've done with Nokia. So as John was saying, we had a brief to produce a proof of concept, and just using hard skills as well as soft skills. So we came up with 3, as John has mentioned, working at heights, fire safety, and presentation skills. So we're working at heights. I mean, how many people do training courses or set up a training course on working heights when there's nowhere to climb something? So it's usually through a computer or maybe in the classroom. But this is where we can use virtual reality, where you can make people experience learning through a virtual reality headset, but also that there is scenarios and decisions they make, and any wrong decisions will have consequences. So if everyone's not been onto our stand, you can have an experience of working at heights, but if you choose the wrong equipment, you're going to fall. So that's one example.
Which Nitin, that's real gamification. Yeah. Gamification isn't collecting silver tokens or badges. It's actually trying things out for real and making mistakes, making it into a game.
Yeah. Fire safety is another thing. How many people have done fire safety or doing fire safety training when you haven't even seen a fire before? So this is, this is where learning happens, and this is where learning is real. So when you do our fire safety demonstration, you feel that there is a fire. You feel you're in that environment, that situation, and you've got to manage that situation in some sense as well. So. And one of the important things that we do is to give feedback. And as John mentioned in our presentation skills, there's different feedbacks we give to the learner. And so one of where the feedback, the data goes into some kind of a tin can solution, or which can be converted to SCORM if possible. So we can keep learner records. So we want to look at what learners have been doing, their behaviors, the decision making, so we can make different kinds of statements, so how they're learning through their process as well. So as Jono mentioned, the presentation skills. I mean, how many people have done presentation skills in a classroom and your mates have a good giggle at you or something like that, but you've never done it in an atmosphere where you can walk on stage, you can hear your own footsteps going on stage, you can hear your heartbeat, you can see the bright lights and the large audience there. So we really create an atmosphere where you are kind of about to present something, and you bring up your nerves, and we teach you how to control your nerves as well. So these are the 3 examples that we've had, and my only conclusion that is to try it out, and it works. So I perhaps encourage you to come to our stand and just by the entrance, and just have a go at the demonstrations we've got for you to try.
Yeah, VR is something quite hard to explain. You really have to try it. So yeah, go to the stand. Nitin's there. I've got some equipment here as well if you want to just talk at the end of it.
Yeah. Are there any questions? I mean, we'll welcome any questions or thoughts or comments or statements or any experiences anyone has had with VR or anything like that. Anyone? Oh, good.
How realistic do the environments have to be for people to feel they're really taking part?
They don't have to be super realistic, and we can make them realistic, but depending on the budgets, to be honest. So we can create different kinds of environments using different technologies. So we could do 360 videos. That would make the environment real in some sense, and we can create the interactions with that. Or we could do computer CGI as well to make them. We can manipulate the environment more with the CGI as well. Sometimes we can take CAD drawings and we could put them into 360 formats as well. So it doesn't have to be super realistic, but I think a sense of being there is important. So you can't have sketches, but having some kind of, you're in that situation or that environment is important.
Yeah, the design and the engagement is very important, because if you're engaged with the material, then it doesn't matter how unrealistic it is, because you're actually in a forced situations and you have to perform. So the graphics not being perfect or bit blocky doesn't matter too much if you're engaged. Engagement's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Right, so there were 2 questions there. The first question was, did we deploy this across all our sites at Nokia? And the second question was, what sort of equipment did we use? Well, we saw this as originally we started developing on the Oculus Rift. And I'm telling you this story because I'm reversing your questions. Because Oculus Rift were the first to the market. Google Cardboard didn't really cut it at the time because you've got the ocular kind of momentum that it doesn't really work. So we thought our future was Oculus Rift, and Oculus Rift then released their commercial specifications, and they were too expensive for all our staff. So it'd be like £1,500 per employee to equip them with their headset and stuff. However, other phone companies started moving on. So hate to endorse Samsung, but Samsung have got the Gear VR headset and the Samsung phones, and that's kind of the platform we're using for demos. So where did we deploy it? We deployed it in our key training centres and key centres of population around the Nokia world. So we've got headquarters in Espoo near Helsinki in Finland. We've got big offices in Munich, in Dallas in the USA. So we hit those centres so more people could experience it. We saw it as a two-way kind of stage. Part of it was the learning, part of it was the innovation, getting people to see it and think, well, how can I use this for my job? So we actually put some network diagrams in as well. And network diagrams you see on a piece of paper, they're quite confusing, but you can actually stand like a planetarium inside the network diagram, look around. So we were trying to push this out to get people thinking, how can I use VR in my job? So it's a two-way thing. We have given out lots of Google Cardboards. Google Cardboard version 2 is so much better than Google Cardboard version 1 because you've got that interface, the button you can click. And just for generic stuff, like the 5-6 minutes, you don't worry about the head tracking. So the mass market approach, Google Cardboard is fine, as long as the duration is less than 5 minutes. But that 5 minutes is like a learning nugget, which is perfect for just quick practice.
Thank you.
Any other questions? But try it out. Come and play. It's
Okay.
So are you selling these simulations that you've created, or?
We're not selling them. We created them just as a proof of concept. But if you'd like to have access to them, then come and see me, and I can let you play around. Any other questions?
I think that's it. But thanks very much for the seminar. As I say, come to us and you can see more of it and experience it for yourself. Thank you very much.